Hello there and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I'm Vlad. I'm here at the Proof of Work Summit in Frankfurt, organized by the ETC people and the Litecoin Foundation people. And I'm sitting next to the creator of MWEB, which is the Mimble Wimble Extension Block. His name is David Burkett. And he used to be a Grin developer who came to Litecoin, built this very beautiful construction which provides scalability and also some privacy. And it's very cool that we get to talk to the architect himself, because this was an idea by Andrew Poelstra, which dates back to 2015 or 2016. But it was just an idea. It was never coded. And this is the man who made it happen. So it's good to have you, David.
Thanks for having me. It was actually even before Poelstra. It was like an anonymous drop, and then he refined it. So yeah, it was just like an anonymous onion share link.
You mean Tom Elvis Jettison?
Yeah. So
no, but he was the one to make MimbleWimble, but Andrew Poelstra
he refined.
Also proposed the extension block side for Bitcoin.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I did interview him this year, and I told him about MWEB, and he said it's very cool that the Litecoin people were able to pull this off. But I don't think it's relevant for Bitcoin anymore in the post-Taproot era, because we can do tap script, whatever. And I was a bit disappointed, but...
Yeah, fads, they come and go for Bitcoiners. It was the greatest thing, and then they had moved on.
Why do you think this is a fad?
Well, I think they saw it. They have fads, is what I'm saying. It's like they get interested in some idea, the communities in general, and then they find a different way to do it, and it's just whatever. At some point, you actually have to implement something. You can't just continue to look for the next greatest privacy. Although I hope that in 10 years from now we have really, really cool privacy tech, and then maybe we'll be regretting our choice of MWEB, or maybe we'll find a way to scale it out and find some new, better thing. But in the meantime, people need privacy now, so. Everything can't be this like just academic exercise. We at some point have to adopt something. And Litecoin, while Bitcoin was debating everything, we went ahead and did it, and I'm glad we did.
I remember in 2018 when Charlie Lee posted this tweet in which he said that he's working in ways to make Litecoin fungible. His first idea was to implement the confidential transactions that were created by Adam Back and Greg Maxwell. Working at Blockstream, and I guess he searched for something which was more avant-garde and more scalable than CT. He came across MimbleWimble, but his first idea was to work with the guys from Beam. So I'm not sure exactly what happened along the way, but then he said, I found this very smart Grin++ developer, which is Grin written in C++, and you're the guy who basically worked for a couple of years to make it happen.
So the Beam guys, I like them. They're smart people. They were very busy with their other things. There's so much they were trying to ship, though they kind of somewhat worked with Charlie for a little there. It was just they didn't really have like resources to dedicate to it, and then I was looking for other opportunities at the time, so it was an obvious. With my background, it was an obvious choice. Was hey, let's see, let's see some real usage out of this, because I had done a lot with MimbleWimble, but then we just had these small ecosystems with that weren't really mature at all. They were brand new, hard to use, whatever. I wanted to see what it was like in a large, mature ecosystem, basically. Yeah.
Let's break it down a bit for people who may not be aware what this is about. So what is MimbleWimble and what is Grin? Okay,
so Grin was the first implementation of MimbleWimble. MimbleWimble is a kind of clever way. It's like a combination of confidential transactions, which just means hidden amounts with fancy proofs. Along with sort of like a CoinJoin mechanism, which means like you take multiple transactions, they have like their inputs that are coins you're spending, and outputs which are like coins you're creating, and you always create like equal or less coins. When you send, you just kind of destroy the old ones, create new ones, and you do so in a transaction. The CoinJoin kind of combines all the transactions, all the inputs from from all of them, and then the outputs from all of them into one big transaction to help eliminate the privacy leak that comes from transaction graphs. And so by combining those two ideas and some clever proofs based off Peterson commitments and just some really simple math, actually, as far as elliptic curve crypto goes. It's just basic math to just prove that that no new coins were created, and that value was transferred appropriately from one party to another in a verifiable way. And it was just a really clever idea that was just developed by some anonymous person somewhere. And so Grin, seeing how it was like a very beautiful proof, like seeing how cool it was, decided to go and implement it. And they were very early Bitcoin days. Like there were a lot of the pseudonyms working on it. There were a lot of really smart people that, well known in the Bitcoin community who were also contributing. It was just a really cool, like cypherpunk type style, like development. And so it was really cool to see all of that come together. And over almost 3 years, then Grin was born. But it struggled to get adoption for various reasons. And so it was, Litecoin was next.
Hold up a minute. Did someone just pay you in stablecoins? Swap that CBDC wannabe for free market, scarce, and provably yours BTC with Sideshift.ai. Do you want to swap your BTC for something else? Use Sideshift, the direct-to-wallet exchange. It's fast, it has lots of liquidity for your needs, and the fees are lower than you might expect. Sideshift is also available via integrations with Trezor Suite and BTC Pay Server. Check out Sideshift.ai today. And yes, you can also use Sideshift to dump every other coin and token to make more BTC. Keep stacking, man. Sideshift.ai.
I remember when Grin was launched, it was very popular. It was basically the most cypherpunk project since Monero, maybe.
Yeah.
And something that was pure, something that was purely driven by users. And then there was this report that you can run your node and not prune the previous transactions from blocks. And you can basically surveil what's happening. And therefore, some people gave up on it and said that it has pretty poor privacy primitives.
So the history gets a little blurred there. Adoption was not really occurring at that point. We were already losing. We had lost a lot of the big names that were early supporters of it, that were well known in the Bitcoin world. It was already struggling. And then the report that came out was sort of like stating the obvious. It's like, if only one person is transacting a minute, it's like saying, I can tell only one person is transacting a minute. It's like, we didn't have enough usage to have any, of the serious privacy benefits. But it was well written, and it ended up being looked like a big hit piece and whatever. So, so the ones who were already struggling to stay interested with Grin, a lot of them had dropped off at that time. But I don't think that's really what, the nail in the coffin there. It was just things were already going down. We were already losing a lot of users at that point.
I did interview a Grin developer, and I'm searching for, his name is Marek Narozniak.
Oh, yeah.
He very much looks up to you. I spoke with him. He's a physicist. He also talked about quantum computing and how that can pose a threat in the future. He's a big fan of yours, I guess. Sometimes you take 1 month to reply to his emails, but he's always happy when he gets a reply. So shout out to Marek.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I enjoy working with him. He's a very smart guy too. So
So why do you think MimbleWimble is still relevant today?
It's still a very the way it provides practical privacy in a very scalable manner without introducing any kind of complex new primitives. There's no like crazy snarks or anything like that. It's a very, very simple to audit, simple to understand for anyone with any kind of crypto background. It's easier to really ensure that it's safe. We don't have Zcash is really fancy stuff, right? And I know it can do a lot of things that MimbleWimble can't, but when 12 people in the world know how it works, and that's a lot of faith to put into a small group of people. And we are getting some ZK proofs these days that are a little easier to understand, and there's at least more of a knowledge background amongst the academic crypto community. But still, there's nothing so simple as what MimbleWimble was. It's based entirely off the same crypto primitives that we use for every other thing in Bitcoin and Litecoin. So it was not like a drastic security adjustment to make any kind of new risks there.
But as far as I know, and I think I used Beam last week, and it does have addresses, but MimbleWimble in its purest form, it has no addresses.
So the addresses, so MimbleWimble can have addresses in its purest form. Like Grin has addresses, but those addresses aren't to send on chain. They're more to encrypt some, it's like to deal with the communication. Basically with one of the biggest hurdles with pure MimbleWimble is that you can't just send to someone offline. You have to actually communicate with the person you're sending to. There's a back and forth protocol. And that led to a lot of issues with adoption for Grin, and less so for Beam because they took a different approach. There's got to be some kind of form of communication. So what a lot of the MimbleWimble implementations will do is have an address that maybe is where they can meet to make the to form the conversation. Like a Grin address is one of two things. It's a Tor address, so they first try to communicate via Tor through an onion address, and when that fails, then they can go and encrypt some kind of packet that can be then manually transferred to the other person to then sign it and give it back. The on-chain, there's no kind of address or anything like that. But also with MWEB, we have addresses which are
That's
stealth
what I was
addresses.
getting actually.
Yeah.
Because I guess it was hard to code as this extension block implementation on Litecoin because it has a different system. You don't just have these temporary addresses that, for example, in Beam, if I don't get online to receive my transaction within 24 hours or something, the transaction gets canceled.
Yeah.
But in the case of Litecoin MWEB, you have this MWEB address, which is permanent, and you can post it somewhere, and people can send you money even years later.
Yep. Yeah, it's based off the stealth address technologies used in Monero and some other coins. It's like a couple of public keys or elliptic curve points that the sender basically generates new one-time use addresses when they send to you. So it allows you to generate a near infinite number of private one-time use addresses. There's no address reuse or anything. Adapting MimbleWimble to support that was one of the biggest challenges, and it's something when we started out with the project we weren't sure we were going to even be able to do. I had serious concerns early on about how Litecoin would work with the existing ecosystem expecting instantaneous sends, via at least instantaneous mempool broadcast. I was worried that we would have some kind of issues not being able to handle the communication involved there. But luckily, we were able to come up with a way to have stealth addresses, to have one-sided send. You just create a transaction like normal and just send it to an address. And there were a lot of security concerns there. We worked with some academics on it. We worked with some auditors. But we were able to, fortunately, find a very good solution, I think. So.
Are you a Bitcoin maximalist? Do you want everything to get built on Bitcoin? Then read more about Drivechains from Layer 2 Labs, an initiative to create a two-way pegged sidechain for every use case. Everything from Zcash privacy to Ethereum smart contracts will be available on a dedicated chain that pays fees to the Bitcoin miners and uses BTC for every transaction. But you don't have to imagine what this would look like. Go to layer2labs.com/download and check out the software. It currently runs on the Bitcoin Signet, but with your help, this grand vision of doing everything on Bitcoin will come true. layer2labs.com/download.
It's very impressive how it works because for the average user, there is no distinction. They don't have to think that they're activating something else, at least in the core client, which I used. I'm not sure what it's going to look like on mobile, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be the exact same user experience.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they're doing for transaction creation on mobile. They have a lot of flexibility, how they handle it, but I know that I personally on Litecoin Core focused a lot on making sure that, first off, it works seamlessly. They had the easy, you don't have to know exactly what's happening under the scenes. For those who do care, you can, but then also choosing private defaults, because if you just send whatever, you can lose the privacy benefits of MWEB. So there was a lot of emphasis on let's make sure that we can do this that maximizes privacy while still being super simple to send and receive. And I think what we have right now works pretty well.
Yeah, you have, I think, 4 or 5 types of privacy. So I'm gonna spell them out so that we can count them. You have sender privacy. You have receiver privacy, you have amounts privacy, you also have network level privacy, so 4 of them.
Yeah, so network level privacy is not so that's like when you broadcast the transaction, is that what you mean?
Or your IP address.
Yeah, so I mean, Bitcoin and Litecoin already have Tor, the option to run via Tor and everything else. We don't, with MWEB, do anything particularly new there. You can still run with Tor, and then that gives you the network level privacy. If you don't run with Tor,
or some VPN on your mobile.
Or VPN, or there's various options. But even if you don't, we still, follow the same practices as normal transactions, where we try not to just be spamming the network, broadcasting all the time, making it obvious where the source is. We try to be to limit that, to gain as much privacy as we can. Yep.
In the Bitcoin white paper, chapter 10, you have this mention that they have. So Satoshi envisioned this idea that you have receiver privacy, which means that if you generate a different receiving address for every transaction, you're going to have pretty good privacy until, and this is actually mentioned in the white paper, use multiple inputs. And you consolidate them together, and that can give people analyzing the blockchain some idea about who might be behind.
Yeah, and MimbleWimble doesn't perfectly solve that. So you still, even if you have the good receiver privacy, you always send to a new address, which stealth addresses guarantee that you are always sending to a new address. We still have to spend coins together. And there's been a lot of research on coin selection algorithms, which we take advantage of to try to, maximize privacy in that aspect. But you can still run into similar issues, which is where it's very useful to have the CoinJoin that comes from MimbleWimble, and we're working on CoinSwap, which will allow you to, when you receive something, then you can kind of submit it to a pool to kind of join with hundreds, maybe thousands of other coins get a fresh coin back, and that gives you a much larger anonymity set for those coins. Then the person who sent it to you can't just watch that coin to see which ones you spend it with. That's no longer an option. Right now it's not perfect. There's still ways we can leak it, but we are working closer. We are getting much closer to Satoshi's vision for what good privacy would be. Yep.
But would you say that there is sender privacy?
Yeah, so sender privacy just, that's kind of what the input linking would be. The sender, if carefully choosing its inputs, has sender privacy, or if carefully following practices like mixing and whatever. But yeah, I don't usually think of it in sender receiver privacy that way. But if you were to, then sender privacy would rely strictly on the sender making smart choices, which in the wallet we always try to do that the best we can for you. But if you're an advanced user and you understand UTXO management, you'll get even better privacy if you do it yourself. Yep.
I actually have a curiosity. I did not try this. Let's say that in my wallet I have two inputs. One of them is MWEB and the other one is ClearNet or main chain. Can I batch them together to send out one transaction?
You can, and it will do that automatically, and you don't have to think about it. What it does, it's a little complicated. It was really hard to make this work. But what it ends up doing is it will, like, let's say you're sending to, you want to send to Clear, maintain Litecoin. It will actually peg in those coins to the MWEB, then build an MWEB transaction with those two inputs that pegs out.
That's very smart because you're not de-anonymizing the setup.
Yeah, because you want to not make the privacy worse. So we actually peg in, and it worked well with the protocol, how it was set up. You peg in, and all in one transaction. It's a peg in, and then the MWEB transaction pegs out. And but you don't even see the link from peg in to peg out necessarily. Actually you do, yeah. But you don't know like the inputs involved, what the size were, or anything like that. Yep.
Hey Anon, have you heard of Starks? Scalable Transparent Argument of Knowledge. It's a protocol that uses zero-knowledge proofs to make transactions more scalable and private. Currently, this tech exists only on Ethereum, but if Bitcoin activates Upcat, we're going to get Starks too. Learn more about Starks by listening to Season 15, Episode 36 of the Bitcoin Takeover podcast with Ellie Ben Sasson. Also, consider supporting Upcat. Meow.
What about amounts privacy? Does MWEB hide the amounts being sent from one party to the other?
Yes, it's very good at that. It's not perfect at that because of the peg in, peg out mechanism. If you were purely using MimbleWimble or the MWEB side, and you are not pegging in or pegging out, you'll have perfect amounts privacy. But there are rare cases if you just like send into the MWEB and send right back out that you can leak your amounts, or maybe have a range of them. Like if you know 100 Litecoins is pegged in this amount, but you're only referring to that many inputs, the inputs that were pegged in your transaction, then you'll know that it's 100 or less Litecoin. So there's ways that you can lose some of the amount privacy. But if you're using good practices and you're keeping your coins on the MWEB side, you'll end up with perfect amount privacy.
No. And I think it was Charlie who mentioned that it could be a good idea to CoinJoin into MWEB and then CoinJoin out of MWEB. And this would give the participants much greater privacy.
Yeah, so when you do peg into MWEB, you do kind of CoinJoin in a way to do it. But I think, it gets a little complicated about whether like it's giving you privacy advantage or not. But definitely the biggest thing to improve your privacy there is, like I said, keeping as much of your transacting on the MWEB side as possible. The weak link there is the peg in, peg out mechanism. We've got to work with the existing chain, which only deals in transparent amounts. and it doesn't have the kind of automatic CoinJoin mechanism. So the key to improving your privacy is always going to be limit main chain use. Try to keep your activity on the MWEB. But there are other things maybe pegging in and out where you may be able to improve.
Yeah, I was thinking about Wasabi Wallet's feature that now they're adding something to pay directly from the CoinJoin. So it becomes very difficult to figure out which one of the outputs actually belongs to the sender.
Yeah, and part of maybe our CoinSwap service, we could do something like that too. Like the CoinSwap is the automatic, I have a dirty UTXO, I want you to give me a clean one that's mixed with lots of other users. Perhaps we could even build into that some kind of a send to other at the same time, which would be similar. Very cool.
Now, there's a lot of interesting research into this. Would you describe right now Litecoin to be the most liquid and most listed of all the privacy coins, or would you say it's a privacy coin at this point?
I mean, if you came to my talk, you would know that I'm very hesitant to label anything privacy because though it has privacy features, you're not fully private, nor are you in any coin you use. You're better off in Monero. If you're using Monero for privacy, it's better off at default privacy. But there are ways you can screw that up too. There are ways that things can go bad. I think that Litecoin has good privacy against many attacks, the ones that are very practical, everyday people have to worry about. Litecoin's very good at that, but that doesn't mean, it's private. You can just, do whatever. You still have to be, it's best to understand what its capabilities are and what its limitations are if you want to really preserve your privacy. Yeah. But as far as the coins that have serious privacy features, Litecoin is probably the most liquid, aside from Ethereum had Tornado and things like that, and it's very fuzzy whether you consider all that part of Ethereum or some other application on it. But as far as core part of the protocol privacy features, Litecoin would be the most liquid of the coins. Yeah.
What is the best way to store your Bitcoin? Do you need a multi-sig setup? Should you buy hardware wallets? And if yes, what kind? How many backups do you need? And how should you spread them around? These are all difficult questions which deserve an individual answer for every user. Thankfully, hodling.ch is here to help you. So if you're part of a company that wants to add BTC to its balance sheet but needs to figure out a multi-sig scheme, or you are a whale who needs to discover the safest long-term holding strategy, you can talk with Polto and Darko, the Swiss co-founders of Hodling. Their service makes you 100% sovereign and puts you in control. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Check out hodling.ch today.
Do you envision a future where you're gonna have swaps between MWEB, Litecoin, and Monero or something?
Absolutely. There's already efforts to do that. I don't know that we've ever had a successful swap yet, but I know that there's the Monero guys have gotten pretty good at swaps because Monero's a little weird to swap with, but they've gotten pretty good at it. And MWEB is not as hard to swap with. It's a lot more traditional. So we know it's possible to swap that, and I do foresee that in the future. I don't know who's going to implement it. There were thoughts of maybe Cake Wallet, but I don't think Justin works with them anymore, so I don't know if they have the same kind of technical resources they used to, but I do expect at some point there will be at least one wallet that has swaps into Monero and possibly other private.
And Zcash too.
Zcash too, yep.
That would be very cool. Because they can tap into the liquidity of Litecoin and still use the privacy benefits of their own coin.
Right. Yeah.
And as fun as it would be to have just one currency Bitcoin as the only one that does everything,
Mm-hmm.
it seems very unlikely at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of technical challenges with that, and it, the solutions a lot of people really, threw their weight behind are not panning out, of course. As far as I can tell, it's always going to be a multi-coin future. I'm hoping that people don't have to think heavily about which coin they're using or which one they're storing in the future that I'm hoping for. It's you store your coins in whatever you're comfortable in, and when you purchase, I hope we have very good, very efficient swap systems built right into the wallets we use, so that you don't even have to think about it. It converts it to whatever value in a decentralized and maybe not instantaneous, but relatively quick way. All seamless. That's the goal.
Yeah, I gotta tell you at this point, and you have to know because I'm gonna place the ad at one point during our interview.
Okay.
Layer 2 Labs is sponsoring this. And I know that they're also trying to bring their side chains, their drive chains to Litecoin. And I know that you're not a big fan of that because you don't think that general purpose stuff should be built without a clear goal in mind. And I was gonna ask you, could you please phrase your argument?
I hate to get into the drive chains too much because there's passionate people who want to see drive chains on there. And then, if I go against that, I'm going to be seen as the anti-drive chain guy, but I'm not the anti-drive chain guy. I have some concerns with the design of it. It's a little bit messy. It's one of the hackier protocols I've seen. I'm not afraid of hacky, but I'm kind of surprised by so many of the weird things that are in the design for drive chains, but I could get over those and we could find solutions there. But my concern is that everybody just wants drive chains because they want drive chains, but I've seen no one saying, wow, this will help me do X, Y, Z. I have this business idea I want to do or whatever. It's all just, we should have drive chains often because Bitcoin doesn't have that, and we would, And I'm not. To me, you want the clear vision. Like with MWEB, the clear goal was privacy, right, or fungibility, improved privacy. Maybe not perfect privacy, but improved privacy. There was a very clear direct benefit to adding that feature. So that's why we worked on it. I think it's kind of wrong to find a technology and just go push it for the sake of the technology. Imagine if Charlie's stuck with confidential transactions because he really wants confidential transactions. No, we wanted privacy. But he started with confidential transactions, found that, MimbleWimble will be even better, and moved to that. So if whatever use cases do arise in the future where people do have a need for something like drive chains, at that time, then it seems to make sense to talk, is drive chains the best solution? But just going from finding a solution without a problem just seems like the wrong way to approach it. It seems strange to me to just push drive chains without a real use case in mind. And that's why I've been hesitant to really get involved with the drive chain discussion, because I'm not anti-drive chains. I don't see anything any huge red flags in there that would make me think, no, this doesn't belong in the protocol. It's just I'm not a fan of adding things that we don't have a direct need for.
I think the worst case scenario is that they get activated and then nobody uses them.
There's always risks involved with consensus. Even though it's been pretty well studied, what can go wrong with drive chains, you never really know until it's actually on a network with actual value behind it, what kind of weird attacks could be thought of, or even just implementation issues. Presumably I would be implementing it with someone else, and I don't have 100% faith in everything I do, so I could screw up the implementation and cause an issue. And it's just such a large, valuable network that to touch the consensus code without a clear reason, without a clear benefit from it, is an unnecessary risk. So I know I know the claim is like the worst that could happen is, we have a feature that's not used, but really the worst we could happen is we could kill our chain. Very unlikely, but there's always a risk when you're messing with consensus code. And we had the same risk with MWEB, even bigger, because it was a much larger change. It's just, to me, I'm personally not interested in any consensus change without a reason, without a solid reason.
Well, the cypherpunk and me would love to have basically swaps from MWEB into a Zcash sidechain or something like this. Because it would be the same currency, but with different privacy benefits.
And we were just talking, but is Drivechains the best way to do that? Because I was just talking with another team about including Grok proofs and ZK proofs into an opcode, and then you could have a layer 2 that way, where you have, you just have proofs that you have to verify on the chain. I don't know how it would work about actually moving coins back and forth. It's got different constraints than Drivechains, but I think having people ready and really wanting to do these things and a community who sees a real benefit in it is the most important thing, not just one that wants to add the technology for the sake of experimenting. You can always experiment in lower value coins. Not every experiment should happen on Litecoin. Yeah.
You have to go to a group photo. Before we end that, I gotta ask you, what do you think about rebranding MWEB as virtual private money, which is VPM?
I mean, I'm not a marketing guy, but I don't care for the idea. It's a little confusing, a little odd. It's so similar to VPN. I don't know, but I'm not a marketing guy, so I'm gonna just keep writing code and let the community adopt whatever terminology they seem fits best.
I just think it's weird that they're gonna call it VPM and then they send addresses that start with the prefix MWEB.
Yeah, and that could always be changed, but that causes another mess too. I like MWEB. I've grown to like it over the years, so it seems odd to change it now without a good reason.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Where can people follow your work very fast?
Twitter, David Burkett 38. I don't know. Just I used to post on Litecoin Talk quite a bit, but I'm very far behind on everything in life right now, so I don't do that quite as much as I did. That's probably the best thing, is just follow my Twitter, and that's it. All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
So I was going to mention something about privacy and the fact that you mentioned liquidity, and for you need to increase the liquidity to have a better anonymity.
Yeah, it's not necessarily liquidity as much as the anonymity set. Yeah. So liquidity has more to do with the ability to just buy and sell, but anonymity set is more like buying and selling, being transacting all around you in enough capacity that you can hide reasonably well. Because, the most important part of any privacy system is anonymity set. If you're just trying to hide away yourself, nobody's going to know it's you. Yeah.
I actually caught this, so.
Oh, cool. All right.
I'll see you later.
See you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey you! Thank you for listening to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This episode is sponsored by Sideshift.ai, Starkware, Layer 2 Labs, and Hodling.ch. Don't forget to subscribe!